Hi, if you want to analyze the economy of your monetary union, then you have to stay with me for the next 15 minutes. Hi, my name is Rudy Camara and welcome back to the Data Analysis and Policy Show, the show where we turn data into analysis so that you can create the right policy. If you are a policy advisor or if you are an investor in the Eastern Caribbean, then this episode is for you. Today we're going to celebrate because I have created something unique for the Caribbean. And do you know what it is? It is a new macroeconomic model for the Dutch Caribbean Monetary Union. As you know, Curacao and Sint Maarten is part of a monetary union. That means basically that we have the same currency, we share one currency, and we share one central bank. And that's the same situation as, for instance, the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, that is consisting of 8 islands: St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Anguilla. And they have one currency, the Eastern Caribbean currency, dollar, and we have one currency, which is the Dutch Antillean guilder. So when you share one monetary union, you cannot analyze the islands in separation, in isolation, because you have to look at the total monetary union. They share the same monetary base, money, and they share the foreign reserves. So what is happening in St. Maarten or Curacao affects each other. Suppose, for instance, that Curacao has a huge deficit on the current account. And that means that the exports are lower than the imports, while St. Maarten could have a hurricane. Those two things affect the monetary union. You understand? So that's why you need to analyze both islands in together and not in isolation. The same thing I plan to do for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. I promised a friend of mine that I would create a macroeconomic model of the Eastern Caribbean as a whole. And of course, after doing that, we will go for the big thing, which is creating a macroeconomic model for the whole Caribbean. Imagine that you could look at what is the total exports of the whole Caribbean, what is the total imports of the whole Caribbean, what is the total GDP of the whole Caribbean, what is the total population of the whole Caribbean. Imagine you could go and check those indicators, those macroeconomic indicators for the whole Caribbean. The reason why we want to do that for the whole Caribbean is because we want to share the Caribbean and have one view for the Caribbean. The corona crisis has shown us that we need to take things up at the regional level. We need to, for instance, discuss the circular economy at the regional level, which is at the Caribbean level. We need to have a view on how many cruise tourists, stayover tourists come to the Caribbean. We need to have a view on how many foreign direct investments is invested into the Caribbean. Because when we focus on the Caribbean, I think this is the most important for CARICOM, for all other OXAS, all kind of Caribbean Development Bank, all those institutions, and also the United Nations institutions like the UNDP. When we focus on the Caribbean, we have more a total picture of what is happening. We have more power. We have more. It's about more lives in the Caribbean, so it helps to have a Caribbean perspective. Right now, the Caribbean is pulled together with Latin America, so in most discussions, in most publications, you will see Latin America and the Caribbean. But I can tell you The Caribbean and Latin America, those are completely different economies. The Caribbean economies might be tourism based. There are some differences between, for instance, Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, because Grenada is more agriculture and Trinidad and Tobago is more oil. Curacao has financial offshore, which is international financial services, etc. Sint Maarten has cruise tourism, a huge amount of cruise tourism. But when you are looking at the Caribbean, comparing that with Latin America, that's a total different ball game. So let me show you this new baby, which is my baby. I consider them my baby when I create a macroeconomic model. And I will just show you some graphs and show you what it looks about. Now, mind you, it is only a demo. It's a first version, but I will show you the model for the Caribbean. First, I will show you the model for the islands, and then I will show you the model for the Caribbean. And it is simpler than you think. So let me show you my screen. So this is the model for, let me see. We check some things. This is the model for the Dutch Caribbean Union. This is the model for the Dutch Caribbean Union. Do you like that? Let me show you this one. Wait. A little bit there. So this is the okay, this is the mic. Let me just put that mic away. This is the model for the Dutch Caribbean Union macro model. So that means this is the model for Curacao and Sint Maarten together. The Dutch Caribbean Union consists of Curacao and Sint Maarten. So here you see the total GDP, the dashboard, and you see, for instance, the number of unemployed, the number of employed. Let me see. Oh, sorry. GDP per capita. You see the number of cruise tourists. You see the number, the stay overnights. And this is completely for the whole Dutch Caribbean. So when you look at these graphs, you are seeing actually the whole Dutch Caribbean consists of 2 islands. Now let me show you the trick, because when you go to the model version and you go to, for instance, let me make this a little bit bigger. When you go to the model version and you look at one variable, let's take, for instance, the gross domestic product. You see, gross domestic product. Then you see that this gross domestic product for the years, for instance, for these years, 2000, it consists of adding up the Curacao and the Sint Maarten model figure. So these figures are nothing more than adding up these 2 macroeconomic models. And of course the definitions, they stay the same, but the most important variables here, or orange variables here, in the other models they were gray variables. They consist of adding up these 2 models. Of course, with inflation, etc., it's not just adding up the models. You have to calculate the inflation on a different way, because the inflation of Curacao and the inflation of Sint Maarten doesn't just add up to the inflation of the monetary union, but for the most variables this is the case. Now let me show you what will happen now when you have the Curacao model. This is the Curacao model, and we want to now simulate something happening in the Curacao economy. So because suppose you have these exports, and number 9 and these exports number 9, we want to change that. We want to decrease that by, say, let's change it by 25%, minus 25. So by doing this, what will happen is in this model, in the Curacao model, you will see something change, and then immediately in the total Dutch Caribbean macro model, Dutch Caribbean macro model, it will pick up and it will change. So we are in the Curacao model right now, and what I have to do is I have to calculate, and then once I calculate, I go to the figures in the Curacao model. You see? Let me go back. Same. So what you need to do is you need to calculate in Curacao model, and immediately it will change in the other models. So I just did this, but this is of course for only 2016 and 2019. I want to do this for the future. So I want to do this, for instance, in 2020. And let's put this in the 3 years, and then let's calculate. And now I go to the, you see that's happening. Okay, this is okay, this is happening. What is happening is you see that this was the baseline, the brown line was before we decreased it, and we see in the blue line is the actual after the simulation. So real GDP is going down for these years in the Curacao economy. But of course, this will have impact in the economy of the Dutch Caribbean. So let's look at the economy of Dutch Caribbean. We did not change anything. The Dutch Caribbean Union, we did not change anything in here. But we need to look at the GDP of the Dutch Caribbean. And immediately, this is the GDP of the Dutch Caribbean. You see that immediately things start changing. And why is that? Because we changed something in one of the submodels, which is the Curacao model, and it will add up and it will show up in the Eastern Caribbean, in the Dutch Caribbean macroeconomic model. You see how affects. Do you have any questions regarding this? Do you have any question regarding this? Because this is very important. So basically what is happening is in one model something happens, and then automatically you will see that in the total economy of the Dutch Caribbean. That is what I wanted to show you today. Now, what can be done? Imagine you have like the Eastern Caribbean currency union, where in one economy, Grenada, you have a growth strategy, and in St. Lucia you have a fiscal package, and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines you have other blockchain, and in St. Kitts and Nevis you have the foreign direct investments. All those simulations can be done in the separate models, economic models, and then it will show up, adding up in the Eastern Caribbean currency union. That is what the power is of having a monetary union macroeconomic model. You will be able to see the whole picture. The IMF, for instance, when they come to the monetary union, they want to see the whole picture. And by adding up those macroeconomic models, you will have the whole picture of the monetary union. Okay? So that's it for today. I want to celebrate with you that we have created the Dutch Caribbean macroeconomic model of the Union. So the Dutch Caribbean Union macroeconomic model consisting of Curacao and Sint Maarten, and we are now able to see the whole picture. And those are important times right now because the monetary union, we have to check the foreign reserves, we have to check the current account, we have to have a global view on what is happening for the whole union. And the next time we will try to in the future we will be able to create a macroeconomic model for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, because we already have 8 macroeconomic models. If you are living in one of those islands, on one of those islands of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union or Sint Maarten and Curacao, stay tuned because we are going to create something great for you during this month, and it's going to open, and it's also having to do with China. So if you want to stay connected, make sure that you do the following. I want to close out, and in closing out, I want you to think about joining my community, which is the community of practitioners, economic practitioners, and the community of investors, policy advisors that want to use data and gather data, turn it into the right information so that they can create the right policies for their islands or for their investment portfolios. And I'm giving you today the 54 variables that you really need to focus on to be able to analyze your economy. And when you join my community by going to www.calmera.net/live, you will be able to see my latest thing that I have created, which is a guide how you can go live. That's one thing, and I'm going to change this thing into waitlist, because when you click on calmera.net/waitlist, you will be able to get my 54 variables, the 54 variables that you need to create a macroeconomic model. So there are two things. Go to the wait list and sit there, grab the cheat sheet, or go to the live, and then you will get my guide for how I go live. What tools am I using? What equipment am I using to do that? So you have two things today. So I'm going to finalize this episode. I want you to stay connected with me, and I'm going to show you the next, before I go out, I'm going to show you what you need to do and where you can connect with me. Okay, you can connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. So here it is. See you next time. This Wednesday, same time, same place. See you there. Bye.